Hello, my monstrosities. Hello once again. Today I bring to you, I promise I'll leave it alone, not Warrior Bioform Onslaught. Even though, even though I was really gonna be petty, if you saw the members video where I came to a conclusion, I was really going to be petty. But, um, I'm not. I'm leaving it alone. Kind of. I'm still gonna be a little bit petty. So, the balanced data slate dropped and there were some changes for Tyranids. There was also lack thereof. I think we can all agree it's a little bit surprising that they dropped Warrior Bioform Onslaught and they didn't change the ranged warrior's uh weapon skill. Sorry, ballistic skill to 3 from 4, and that they didn't do anything for the warriors or the Wing Tyranid Prime, like at all. They didn't address the save. They didn't give Wing Tyraniid Prime a keyword so that you can take 6 of these for all of the warriors they want you to take. None of that. They didn't do anything. And I've gone on record several times and said anything you could do in this detachment, you could do somewhere better. And today, I'm not necessarily going to go about it that way. I'm just going to show you something else, and then you pick which one you'd rather do it in. And not so much as show because I'm not pulling up like the list that I'm currently looking at or anything like that, but more so of a tell. As a hey, let's think about this for a brief second and go from there. So with Warrior Bioform Onslaught, they want you to take Warriors and Endless Multitude. Now, both of those are in a state of disarray. There's enhancements you could do, but TLDR, I've said you could take melee warriors in other places. And they actually kind of just got nerfed in one of those places, so now I have to shut the fuck up and say that probably don't take them in Synaptic Nexus anymore because Reinforced Hive node got hit with the rest of Armor of Contempt. So, what do? Well, there was another missing change. Quite a few people pointed out that Unending Swarm did not get addressed, like whatsoever. They clearly don't want Unending Swarm to come back. Or at least the iteration that was in the meta for so long. What if I gave you a build of Unending Swarm that achieved the task that this one possibly could? What if I told you there was an Endless Multitude unit that's actually kind of good right now, and, well, you can take enhancements on warriors, because you obviously can't put them on anything attached to the Hormigons. So, Unending Swarm, the detachment rule is each time an enemy unit is selected to shoot, after that unit has finished making its attacks, if one or more models from one or more Endless Multitude units from your army were destroyed as a result of those attacks, each such unit can make a surge move. To do so, roll 1d6. That unit can be moved a distance in inches up to the result, but that unit must end that move as close as possible to the closest enemy unit, excluding aircraft. When doing so, those models can be moved within engagement range of enemy units. A unit cannot make a surge move while it is battle shocked. So, the latest hit to Unending Swarm was the fact that you can't surge while battle shocked, and you can only do it once per phase. Like, no multiple surges if multiple things shoot your units. So that is a big hit. But if we're being honest, we also weren't using fucking Unending Swarm lately. Now, going over to the enhancements, we have Relentless Hunger, Tyranid models only. Add 2 to the move characteristic of models in the Bearer's unit. So, if we throw this on a Winged Tyranid Prime, that would give it a 14-inch movement. And it would give the Winged Tyranid Warriors, I'm sorry, the melee Tyranid Warriors, an 8-inch movement. So, then I would be a little bit more confident in them moving to deliver their damage, per se. Naturalized camouflage for 30 points. Tyranid model only at the start of the first battle round. Select up to 3 friendly endless multitude units within 9 inches of the bearer. Until the end of the battle round, each time a ranged attack targets one of those units, models in that unit have the benefit of cover against that attack. Now, this one doesn't necessarily come into play, but I do also want to say the Winged Tyranid Prime can attach to gargoyles, which are endless multitude. So this is something that is possible as well, the same way it was kind of possible over here. Piercing Talons, 25 points. Tyranids model only each time a model in the bearer's unit makes an attack on a critical wound, improve the AP characteristic of that attack by 1. If we put this on a Winged Tyranid Prime and put this on warriors, their crit AP will be AP 3. If something doesn't have an invulnerable save, 9 times out of 10, it's dead, if not on 6s, right? So that's also pretty good. And then Adrenalized Onslaught, 15 points. Tyranids model only each time the bearer's unit piles in or consolidates. Models in that unit can make an additional move, can move an additional 3 inches. Now, found out how good this is recently with Flyblown Host, where they have this as a stratagem. But notice how it says piles in or consolidates, meaning if you pile in, you get 3 and 3 more, and if you consolidate, you get 3 more. So you can take a slow unit across the fucking field, and that's been one of my biggest things about the melee warriors, that they are comparatively slow. Now, I promised I wouldn't be talking about how mediocre warriors are today. Even though I guess I technically just did that. That went in a way that I didn't necessarily mean. More so, I meant that you can do the things of here, kind of over here, with enhancements. Now, mind you, you won't get something like +1 to hit, but -1 to the hit roll you were getting with Venom Throats in this list anyway, and Advance and Charge, well, that's close enough to +2 to move, right? So I was going to be very petty and just go through all of this and go, yeah, it's awesome, this, that, whatever. But then, a comment, Big Nick Energy, I believe this is my second time shouting you out in the last few recordings. We'll see if that other one goes up, whenever that one goes up. I don't know which recording is going up first. But put up a good point. Because, 2 good points actually, because in my Warriors video, I'm like, I just find I like other things better. And it was a very good thing to point out that you can use melee warriors as a counterpunch. If something goes up first, such as an endless multitude unit, maybe a very fast one that has advance and charge and did a surge move, you can then follow that up with the melee warriors and do a fuck ton of damage onto that unit. Right? Right. But also, there was another part of that comment, or maybe it was a separate comment. Sorry, I didn't post it. I didn't screenshot it right now to think about this. Either way, point is there is another unit that might benefit from this as well. For 15 points more per unit, this could be Broodlord Genestealers with a lot more bodies and a natural 5-up invulnerable save. This will take Broodlord Genestealers to moving 10 inches, and they already have Scout, right? Naturalized Camouflage, benefit of cover, doesn't really matter in this case, but it is important to note you can put this on them, and now you have a Synapse unit that can keep up with your Hormagaunts, along with on Relentless Hunger, that can give them Synapse so that they are +1 strength in melee. So they end up hitting with strength 4 instead of with strength 3, making a lot of breakpoints, considering what they would have had. With Piercing Talons, we could save ourselves 25 points because a critical wound just becomes a dev wound. You don't have to worry about the fucking AP, it's just a dev wound. For the same damage of 1. But Adrenalized Onslaught is even better here, because for 15 points, you put this on Broodlord Genestealer, and now, guess what? They get their rerolls to wound by hitting things that are on an objective marker. So while you would lose twin linked on things that aren't on objectives, you can pile in an additional 3 inches or consolidate onto a point an additional 3 inches. And now, since you're on a point, you get your fucking wound rerolls. Then we go down to the stratagems. And yeah, everything here listed does say something about Endless Multitude. But let's think about what they say. Okay, for this one, we got Synaptic Goading. We also have, when making that surge move, you can reroll the d6 to determine how far your unit moves, and it can go to the closest objective marker. So again, if we're talking about Hormagaunts that already have a 10-inch move, they advance and charge, that Blood Surge move can get me to crowding on an objective marker, putting my OC there, giving me control, and if somebody actually wants to contest it, I can then follow that up with maybe 10-inch moving Broodlord Gene Stealers, or the ones that already scouted, and possibly gave this unit benefit of cover. Just something like that. Swarming Masses. You're shooting or the fight phase. This is nice. One Endless Multitude unit, you get sustained hits of 1, and if it contains 15 or more models, score critical hits on 5 up. So, mind you, probably don't need to use this one often, but when they go to, let's say, Strength 4 because of Synapse being around and having AP of 1, that's a lot of breakpoints for some sustained across 20 models. That's a lot of attacks. Assuming you got, all of them in, but even if you didn't, there's quite a few attacks. Crits on 5s. Now, mind you, you could get crits on 5s and sustain somewhere else. We will be talking about that. For 1 CP, though, that's not too bad. Especially when I'm not asking them to do the damage. You have Unending Waves. Now, of course, this is the big conversation as to why we stopped playing Unending Swarm, because they have made it so that only once per battle, you can add a new unit to your army identical to your destroyed Endless Multitude unit that doesn't have a character in it at starting strength, right? 2 CP is steep, but we made it work at one point in time. So now, it feels like this detachment is dead. However, I would like to thank the GSC community. Recently, they got a change on this recent balanced data slate that said they don't have that army rule of on a 5-up you get the unit back. Instead, you have resurgence points. And a lot of them pointed out that it's a little bit better than what I thought. I thought it was kind of a nerf. But if you can choose when you really need one unit back, that's better than taking the chance. Now, mind you, again, it is nerfed than what we previously had. But if I know that I really need 20 models back one more time, just for the game to continue, it's better than never having them at all. So I have seen the power of choosing, 1, to be a little bit more strategic with it, and 2, when you want it. Bounding Advance. Until the end of the phase, each time your unit advances, do not make an advance roll, auto-advance 6. So that means your Hormagaunts now have 16-inch movement. And they advance and charge for 1 CP. That means they get into the battle. And we'll talk about several things, and you might be asking, like, they don't do that much damage and they, get crowded up. We will address a lot of things in this one, just to drive it home. Teaming Masses. Your opponent's shooting phase or the fight phase, just after an enemy unit has selected its targets. One Endless Multitude unit from your army that was selected as the target of one or more of the attacking unit's attacks. Until the end of the phase, each time an attack targets your unit, subtract 1 from the hit roll. This is better than stealth. It doesn't just say, hey, you have stealth. This says shooting or the fight phase. So, if somebody is out of range of the Venom Thropes, give them this -1 to hit. If you're in the fight phase, give them -1 to hit for 20 fucking models that may or may not also have a feel no pain. Or, with a variation of this list, maybe an invuln on top of that. Preservation imperative. Your opponent's shooting phase just after an enemy unit has selected its targets for one endless multitude unit. Until the end of the phase, your unit is treated as containing fewer than 5 models for the purposes of blast. So if they shoot you with blast and other things such as, well, we'll get to there too. Blast usually eats up hordes, right? It gives additional rolls, additional hits for things to get off the board. But if you use one CP, your unit doesn't have to worry about those additional rolls. Instead, your opponent has to worry about you being possibly -1 to hit with less rolls at their disposal. Now, I'm not saying a lot of things that are brand new because we've seen Unending Swarm before. However, the iteration we saw was, of course, Tervagon with Termagants. And Turvy, regenerating a bunch of Termagants, and then Unending Waves also stocking that up their resources. We've seen that several times over. Then you had Sustain and Lethals to combo to do more damage. However, the thing that always was weird to me is that, yeah, they are, with the Spine Fist, using pistol weapons, so they can fight in combat, but it's not much. The Spine Fists are pistol, you can use them, because you would let them blood surge up and go about it that way. However, at the end of the day, for them to use their Spine Fist, that is still only 2 attacks. Hitting on 4s, Strength 3. That does not get better. Yeah, they get lethals being around Turvy, and now they can get lethals being around a Hive Tyrant. A walking Hive Tyrant. But that is still a low volume of shots for what you are getting. But let's go forward into what this idea that I propose today can do. With the Broodlord, it has Scouts 8. While this model is leading a unit, weapons equipped by models in that unit have the devastating wounds ability. At the start of the fight phase, select one enemy unit within engagement range of this model. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in that unit makes an attack, subtract 1 from the hit roll. So, with the Broodlord, with Venom Thropes, with Teeming Masses, your units can probably be -1 to hit no matter what. And also, the Broodlord himself does have Dev Wounds and Twin Linked for this amount of attacks, and Scouts 8 means that you can go forward and get really into the mix really quickly, as well as giving you a way to start giving out Synapse to your Unending Swarm of what we're doing today, Hormagaunts, to give them that plus strength in melee, because they are the melee gaunts. Let's talk about the Gene Stealers. Each time a model in this unit makes an attack, reroll a hit roll of 1. If the target is within range of 1 or more objective markers, reroll a wound roll of 1 as well. Now, we're going for Dev Wounds, but if the Dev Wounds don't happen, they still have AP of 2. That means that if you're making 5s on, well, let's say 10 and, well, 9 and below, because this goes up to strength 5 thanks to Synapse, you can get the wound rerolls of 1 for 5s and 6s doing AP1 damage, and each model has 4 attacks. So, between 10 models per unit, that's 40 attacks that can be doing 40 damage. They already hit on 2s, so in other things, you don't necessarily need to worry about it. They hit on 2s. And then you throw in 5 more attacks from the Broodlord that does have damage too, and goes to strength 7 thanks to Synapse. We're actually kind of cooking with gas for 150 points of 10 models. Alright? And now let's talk about the Hormagaunts. They are T3, movement 10. I should go back. They're movement 8. Gene Stealers and Broodlord, movement 8, and Scouts 8 gets them up the board quicker. Hormagaunts, 10-inch movement, advance and charge. Okay, bounding leap, 20 models, 130 points. 3 attacks per model, hitting on 4, strength 3, AP 1, damage 1. Synapse takes this to 4. 3 attacks per model means that you can have 60 attacks going into a target. That's a fuck ton of saves. And at AP 1, after Armor of Contempt just got nerfed, instead of I don't know, just some random Space Marine unit that is T4. Maybe hell, even T3 for like Eldar and shit. Having Arm of Contempt for like the entire phase, only one time will they get it, and that's probably the time that if they really want to save some AP, that way not everything becomes a devastating wound from the Gene Stealers, assuming they have a save of, well, most of them have like a 3 or 4. So, instead of saving on 5s and 6s, they might pop Arm of Contempt then. But then, they also still have a fuck ton of Hormigaunt attacks to worry about at AP 1. And if they don't, how many people are actually going to Armor of Contempt AP1 out of Hormigaunts for possibly 60 attacks that do still hit on 4s? Don't get me wrong, they do still hit on 4s, but for a CP, and with the right amount, they are sustained hits 1 and critting on 5s. That is the evil that is here. And I also want to point out that instead of needing to always pop a CP to keep them alive in the fight phase with teaming masses, if the Broodlord touches the same unit, gets charged, one unit gets charged by both Hormagaunts and Broodlord, pretty possible given the movement characteristic of both, right? And again, Scout State. At the start of the fight phase, it's one enemy unit within engagement range of this model. So really, you just need to let the Broodlord get into engagement range of whatever the Hormagaunts are also in engagement range of. And then, even if they try to lift the Hormagaunts, that, once again, insurmountable odds did a... What's the fuck this called again? A surge move. A brood surge move? Yeah, just a surge move. My bad. I thought we made it cooler. That is already in combat. They are -1 to hit in the combat because of the Broodlord anyway. And anybody that doesn't have the Broodlord in combat, you can use Taming Masses on. And if they were outside of that, outside of combat, you have Venom Thropes to keep them -1 to hit. So they still do have T3. That's not the hardest thing to lift. They surprisingly have a 5-up save. And with the benefit of cover, unless you are dedicating AP2, they still get a 5-up save. And if there's no AP, because they go, oh, it's Hormagaunts, -1 to hit, no AP, get the benefit of cover from some Venom Thropes, you're saving on 4s, and they're -1 to hit against you. Now, in combat, it doesn't apply, of course. However, outside of that, this is where we're going today. Now, I've talked all of this good stuff about why you would do that in Unending Swarm. And I already hear the comments going, why the fuck wouldn't you just do this in Invasion Fleet? So let's go through some of the detachments that people would expect you to do this in, starting with Invasion Fleet. Yes, versus Infantry or Swarm, these infantry units would have sustained hits 1. However, with this detachment of Unending Swarm, you can have sustained hits 1 for 1 CP into any target. Now, mind you, it's not across everybody, but it doesn't seem like I'll have a tough time with infantry or swarms with this build. In fact, Gene Stealers are pretty good at picking up infantry for 40 attacks that reroll hits and have dev wounds. They're actually pretty good and have AP2 at picking up infantry. A lot of things in Tyranids is good at picking up infantry. And in hindsight, I am laughing now about how much I'm trying to sell Gene Stealers thanks to learning about the tactic from Gene Stealer Colts. But going back, let's look at the enhancements. Just because I did say I'm bringing Broodlords, and because how much I hated it everywhere, let's start about that character aspect. Going back for a second, I said that with Unending Swarm, I can give a Broodlord unit 2-inch movement, Endless Multitude, benefit of cover, +1 AP but don't need it, and pile in Consolidate of an additional 3. So what do we have in another detachment that is usually better enhancement-wise? Alien Cunning. Alright, I could, for 30 points, redeploy, but all I have is Gene Stealers and Hormagaunts, I don't really need to redeploy too much. I know what my game plan is. It's to go forward and punch people. Perfectly adapted. Once per turn, you can reroll one hit roll, one wound roll, one damage roll, one advance roll, one charge roll, or one saving throw. Okay? For 15 points. Don't really need the reroll hits because we're Gene Stealers. Don't need the wound roll because we're Gene Stealers. And I'm also, advance roll. All right, that's fine. Charge roll, also fine. Saving throw, sure, fine, fuck it. But also, I got a 5 up invulnerable save and 2 wounds of pop and 6 wounds here. I don't really need that one too tough. Synaptic linchpin, don't need this anymore. We would have put this on Broodlord back in the day. But he's Synapse now, so don't really need it. And adaptive biology, the bearer has a 5 up feel no pain. I don't give a fuck if my one Broodlord has a 5 up feel no pain compared to the unit having something like a 5 up feel no pain. So let's go to that. Of course, rapid regeneration. I could give one unit a 5 up feel no pain. You know what's better than that? Just taking a psychophage for 95 and giving a lot of things a 6 up feel no pain when nobody expects it. Overrun, you go, well, hey, you said overrun as an enhancement. Of course, you just take overrun and rapid regeneration, right? Well, let's think about overrun. What actually happens? It is during the fight phase, just before a Tyranid unit from your army consolidates. Until the end of the phase, each time your unit consolidates, models in it can move an additional 3 inches as long as your unit can end that move within engagement range of one or more enemy units. If your unit is within synapse range of your army and not within engagement range of any enemy units, instead of making that consolidation move, it can make a normal move of up to 6 inches. This is purely consolidates. Purely consolidates. Purely consolidates. So yeah, it's good. But over here, the enhancement gives me pile in or consolidate. I can move 6 inches for both of these with Broodlord Gene Stealers. And we've just seen how good that is with Flyblown Host. I should have pulled that up, but that's kind of been a little bit better than people expected. So, alright. Adrenal Surge. Crits on 5s, but for 2 CP. And it applies to 2 units. Now, mind you, there are some additional hoops to jump through over here. For 1 CP, it's crits on 5s, and I can't apply those crits to my Broodlord Gene Stealers. But again, how badly do I need crits on 5s to achieve sustained hits for infantry on my Broodlord Gene Stealers? They will kill infantry. And if I am choosing lethals for monsters and vehicles, I'm not choosing my Broodlord to come along because I have lethals that will fuck over devastating wounds. And quite frankly, I'm not bringing Gene Stealers often without the Broodlord. Because again, the Broodlord, you know how I said that it'd be nice if the leader gave more for the warriors and some people just were like, no, you're asking for too much? Notice how the Broodlord, for 15 points more, gives both dev wounds and still has an ability such as making the unit that you go against -1 to hit. See that funny thing there? For 15 points more? Yeah, we're doing that. And really, I don't give a shit about precision. Really don't. Especially when, hey, I mean, I guess I could challenge if I really, really need it. So for 1 less CP, I could just make 1 unit crits on 5s for any target. Mind you, it is Hormigons, but now they are going to strength 4, -1 AP. Crits on 5s. Alright. And again, the strength is coming from Synapse that we're getting from the Broodlord. Then we go to Predatory Imperative. That lets me select a different one. Again, for the reasons aforementioned, I don't want lethal if I have the Broodlord, and I don't need sustained if I'm playing Gene Stealers with the Gene Stealers. Death Frenzy, this is one that I would miss. For 1 CP, Fight on Death is pretty darn good. But I'd actually just like the road of not being dead, and then possibly bringing my unit back, which takes us to versus Endless Swarm, right? Endless Swarm, up to 2 Endless Multitude units from your army that are within Synapse range, or just 1 that is outside. D3 plus 3 destroyed models to each of the selected units. So, I would be missing the ability to spend 1 CP per turn to bring back some endless multitude units. However, this really gets better unless you have the CP to spare when you have Turvy and the Termagant, so you stack that. Outside of that, I usually can just save the CP for some of these other things, but this is where it comes down to it. Do I want to spend a CP my command phase? So I have 5 command phases. Probably nothing happened on the first one. So 4 command phases, 4d3 plus 12, plus 12, 4d3. Okay, 4d3. The average of that would give me about 8, right? Because d3, the average of that is 2. 2 times 4 is 8. 8 plus 12 is 20. I could, over the course of the battle, now again, doesn't just always work this way, but just hear me out. On average, I could get 20 models back for 4 CP. Or, if I'm not bringing Turvy and the Termagants, I could bring back 20 models one time for 2 CP. Half the CP, about the same amount of value. Do we see how that works? Now, that is working on averages. For if I did that every turn, there is a chance that I have 24 models come back. Whoops. There is a chance of that. However, on average, for half the CP, I can do it one time and be okay. Alright? That's my argument for Invasion Fleet. You can still try this build in Invasion Fleet and tell me how it works for you. But you will be drastically losing out on speed. While you will have Hormagaunts that now have sustained hits 1 without a CP, or lethal hits, if you feel that's needed. And no 5 upfield, no pain. Instead, settling for 6, right? That's what I'm settling for, a 6, with the Psychophage. That's true. But you lose out on getting them up the board as fast as possible from having a surge move with insurmountable odds. That's argument number 1. Now let's go to Vanguard Onslaught. Monster, we've seen Broodlord Genestealer several times over, into which you would just take that and Vanguard Onslaught. I know that you've said probably not the best strategy, even though we keep doing it, but you've never explained what you mean. Can you please give me an example of why you think that it's overrated in Vanguard Onslaught to use the bricks of warriors or stealers instead of using Molochs and Trigons? Or maybe even Hive Crones and Von Rhinesleepers. I know you've... Let's talk about that, monster. So let's look at Vanguard Onslaught. It is true that, thanks to questing tendrils, both your Hormagaunts and your Stealer block would have access to advance, fall back, and charge, which is powerful. But how often do I need to fall back and charge if this is the build I'm going for? If you go for a build that is asking you to use blast weapons, which I don't intend on using in this one, spoiler alert, go ahead. Vanguard might give you better mileage. But outside of that reason, that's why I'm using Unending Swarm. I don't care about the fallback. Instead, I'd rather have a 10-inch moving brick that already scouted, and then the other ones advancing and charging while still having a surge move when they aren't battle shocked. And because something is keeping up with their speed, I get 3d6 for battle shock test. That's my idea there. And then Hunting Grounds. Let's look at the enhancements. Starting with Hunting Grounds, 20 points, Tyranids model only while the bearer is on the battlefield. Each time your opponent sets up a reserves unit on the battlefield, roll 1d6. On a 2-up, that unit must take a battle shock test. That's fine, that's dandy. I don't give a fuck about battle shock in this idea. I don't. We also saw that deep striking, 3 inches, is going to be less prevalent, so there's probably going to be less deep striking. And coming off the board, that often, so 20 points that I don't need on a Broodlord, that could be something else. Chameleonic. The bearer has stealth, and the models in the unit have the benefit of cover. For 15 points, I could just make this Venom Tropes for several of them. Stalker. At the start of the battle, select one enemy unit. Each time the bearer makes an attack that targets that enemy unit, add one to the hit roll and add one to the wound roll. This goes on the model only. I don't need my Broodlord to have +1 to hit because it hits on 2s, and +1 to wound I don't care because it has devastating wounds twin linked. Save myself 10 points there. Neuronote, 20 points. Again, another redeploy. Again, I don't care about the redeploys here. I don't need it. My army is doing one thing, going forward as fast as possible, tying everything up, being -1 to hit while doing devastating wounds damage. That's the idea. So again, when I say we need to observe what other things can be in other places, this is why I say that. It's hard to believe me sometimes when I say that something like, hey, have you considered not doing warriors and gene stealers in Vanguard Onslaught? Because quite frankly, other things might be okay, such as putting stealth on a winged hive tyrant, stalker on a winged hive tyrant. I understand that the pool is limited, but the pool doesn't have to be all of them. We've seen that this is Tyranids model only and this is Tyranids model only, so that means they already knew, maybe, just maybe, you want to throw it on some other things. So there's that. Now, what am I losing stratagem-wise by not going Vanguard Onslaught? Well, again, I don't need +1 to hit, and since I'm going for death wounds, I don't need +1 to wound. Alright, I lose out on a reactive move. I lose out on the ability to possibly become Lone Op, but I'm -1 to hit because of stealth with Venom Thropes, and then -1 to hit, so don't really care about that. I still don't care about precision. I'm not coming off the board, so I'm not coming from off of the board with reserves because I'm scouting, so I don't care about seeded broods. And Invisible Hunter, I don't need to take them off of the board because I want to go into my opponent as fast as possible. So yeah, the Broodlord Gene Stealers don't get advance and charge like they would in Vanguard Onslaught. But one of them has a 10-inch move, they all scout, and one of them has a pile and consolidate of 6 inches for both of those. I think you'll be fine if you don't advance. Meanwhile, I can use all these enhancements, and then my other shit can use all of these enhancements. Okay? So, that's Vanguard Onslaught's comparison as to why I'm not doing it there. And, once again, Synaptic Nexus just got hit, so I don't see an additional reason to do it there. Now, mind you, I could for one turn give the Horror Magons a 5-up invuln, +1 to the advance and charge, or +1 to the hit roll. But I don't need this for my Broodlord Gene Stealers. Don't need this for my Broodlord Gene Stealers. This is okay. Don't need this on my Broodlord Gene Stealers. Don't really need this again for the same reason as oh, sorry. Recorded 2 videos in a day. This was a separate video. But because we have less Deep Strike coming on, actually, yeah, for Hunting Grounds. Same reason as Hunting Grounds. Less reserve shenanigans, probably. So don't need this. I don't really care about Synaptic Control taking off 1 damage of my 6 wound model. And I don't really care about leadership because I'm not doing Battle Shock things with these units. So again, the enhancements, I don't care. The Reinforced Hive node, I have a 5-up invuln. That's the same as a 5-up save. Really don't care about that. Smothering Shadow, I'm not looking to do Battle Shock. Don't care about that. Don't need the additional 9 inches for a Synapse. Don't care about the Imperative. The rerolls would be nice for my Hormigons. However, I don't need this for my Broodlord Gene Stealers, once again. And fallback, shoot and charge. I don't have any guns here, so I don't need to shoot, and I've already charged. So again, I don't need this idea anywhere else because I know that'll be a hard thing to believe. No need it there. But just for the sake of it, let's talk about the possibility of assimilation swarm. If you take some things out, or hell, you just ask your one psychophage to be the greatest harvester ever, let's talk about the things that would be missing out of assimilation swarm. So we've already done the math of endless multitude, right? Now, however, you will say that you can heal each of the units that are missing 3 or so models with a different harvester. But I don't think you're spending all of your harvesters on getting your Hormigons back up to snuff. And one destroyed infantry model, it doesn't give you the same bang as just doing the Hormigons because if you bring back a Gene Stealer, it is 2 wounds compared to 3 that you could bring from Hormigons. And lost wounds, same argument, right? You would lose out on regenerating monstrosities, into which, if you do want to spend 2 harvesters to bring back 4 wounds worth of stealers, that's something. You would lose out on the possibility of heroic intervention fights first stealers. That's I don't have a rebuttal for that one. That's true. Biophagic flow, that's to make assimilation swarm better. Parasitic biomorphology, +1 to strength and +1 to attacks, 25 points. Again, these are the ones that I truly would feel I'm missing if I were to take out some of the Hormigons and put in more harvesters to try to do this. You also have Vanguard Impulse to give +1 wound, but you don't have 5-up Feel No Pain for anything in this. Lethal hits, again, doesn't work if I'm doing Broodlord Gene Stealers, and I don't want to spend lethal hits when I can't get crits on 5s for Hormigons, really. Um, Reclaim Biomass would be nice. Sticky, I am missing Sticky, I guess, but again, not a harvester out of this list. And Rapace's Hunger could be nice. I guess that's one I'm missing. So if you want to downgrade the list and change some things around, I guess you could try the new and improved Assimilation Swarm with this idea. But let's go on to the rest of the data sheets for this video. The Winged Hive Tyrant. We're going to use a trick that I've observed and that I believe has been discussed quite a few times on this channel now. But if you have Paroxysm with your Winged Hive Tyrant, you can, at the start of the fight phase, select one enemy unit within a foot of and visible to this model and roll 1d6. On a 1, you take some mortal wounds. On a 2 up, until the end of the phase, subtract 1 from the attached characteristic of weapons equipped by models in that unit. Now, we've seen Sam Pope do this with Tervagon and the Termagants. They get into combat, they are probably they actually aren't -1 to hit because they are an invasion fleet. But I believe he did this tactic in Unending Swarm as well. So we're going to go with that. Make them -1 to hit and make it so that the people going into them have less attacks. They don't have the volume to pick up that many Hormigons in this situation. Same logic. But my other thing that Paroxysm has always been that it's at the start of the fight phase. So you have to get shit into the fight phase as fast as possible. If I do that with Hormigons that are advancing and charging 10-inch move and surging, they can get into combat faster than any Termagant unit can. And then I can already start that, and then once I follow up either with a CP for the stratagem or my Broodlord getting into engagement range, they are -1 to hit and then -1 attacks. And Will of the Hive Mind we already know, but this is to keep the CP flowing. For 200 points, and then possibly some Strength 10 attacks to get rid of some other shit. Winged Hive Tyrant is your option when you're not going for a shooty build, such as you would with Termi and Tervagon, where you with Turv and the Termagants, excuse me, where you would take the Walkrent. Instead, we're going full melee, so we're bringing the Winged Hive Tyrant, who, yes, is again a Vanguard Invader, but for the previous reasons, that's why we're not in Vanguard Onslaught. Then we have the Psychophage. I've said it several times. You are bringing the Psychophage for Biostimulus Aura. While a friendly Tyranid unit is within 6 inches of this model, models in that unit have the Feel No Pain 6-up ability. That's all we're bringing her for. It has a 5-up Feel No Pain on the way. We've already covered Harvester. You can do that. If you want to try that one, you can do that. And then the +1 to wound with a bunch of fucking attacks if they take out the Psychophages or some Ripper Swarms. You can do 3 Psychophages, 3 Ripper Swarms, but I don't know how many points you will be left over with. I guess I should say that now since I'm not bringing up a list because I want you to play with your own ratios for the idea if you want to do this. For my list currently at 1995, I have 3 Broodlords with Max Gene Stealers, Relentless Hunger, Adrenalized Onslaught, Naturalized Camouflage, Wing Hive Tyrant, 10 Gargoyles just for some Deep Strike, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units of Max Hormagaunts. Got Biovores for more points to block some shit too, a Neurolictor, Psychophage, and Venomthropes. And I will explain one that I just spoiled in a second. We're just bringing the Psychophage for this, but you can also now have a cheap Flamer that might do something for you, and possibly some more Death Wounds that might do something for you. Venomthropes. While a friendly Tyranid unit is within 6 inches of this unit, each time a ranged attack targets that unit, models in that unit have the benefit of cover against that attack. In addition, while a friendly Tyranid unit, excluding monsters, is within 6 inches of this unit, models in that unit have the stealth ability. This is the other reason why it's not in Warrior Bioform Onslaught, because I'm tempted to take the Neurotyrant and attach that to the Warriors, but if I attach the Neurotyrant, it now has a monster in it, so you can't get the benefit of -1 from the Venomthropes. So that's that. However, people are whispering that you don't take the Neurotyrant on that unit at all anyway, and you just go with Zoanthropes. Maybe um, Tyrant Guard and take Elevated Might. But, that's another reason why I didn't lock this in for Warrior Bioform Onslaught. That's Venomthropes. Gargoyles, like I said, just need some amount of deep strike, but in your shooting phase after this unit has shot, if it is not within engagement range of any enemy units, it can make a normal move up to 6 inches. If it does, until the end of the turn, this unit is not eligible to declare a charge. However, it can still make a surge move. So, if you drop 10 gargoyles, that's what I have in my list, but if you play it around, anyway, if you drop some gargoyles, deep strike, you know how they work. Deep strike, shoot. They now have a 6-inch move. They can't charge. However, if somebody shoots them, don't get them off the table, they now surge, assuming they're not battle shocked, right? Surge into your opponent that was probably only 3 inches away, or 3.1. And they can end within engagement range. So, if you want to do another mix, you dial back on some of the Hormagaunts and add some more Gargoyles. They do cost more, but they will do less damage output for the idea because they have less attacks between their 2 weapons. No AP, same damage. That's why we're not doing that. And not pistol, so they would then be resorted to only this. And then finally, the Neurolictor. This is just to give you an infiltrate. It is nice if you get feeder tendrils when this model destroys an enemy character with its precision attack, 1 CP. That would be nice. It also would be nice that if in your command phase you battle shock somebody because you gave them a test, and when they fail that test, they are now -1 to hit you, as well as you being +1 to wound for them. So if you do that with, I don't know, 45 odd attacks, maybe 60 attacks with -1 AP or -2 AP, whatever it may be, that would be nice for 90 points. But more than anything, you want infiltrate so you can scout your bricks up and have a bad time. Now, I was playing around with 2 Neurolictors for this idea. You can do that if you really want to capitalize on possibly doing damage. Has infiltrate, lone op, stealth. Right? You can do that. And you might be asking yourself, alright, how do you deal with super heavies? Tanks. Easy. Well, actually not easy, but easy. I don't care, because they probably can't handle you either. you are getting points for being on objectives with OC, and you are tying them up in battle with Hormagaunts and Broodlord Gene Stealers, and then your Broodlord Gene Stealers do have dev wounds. So if they make enough attacks, it will pop, whatever it may be. And you probably got there, and then it's -1 to hit. And if they try to shoot you, if they don't have something that, if they have something that negates big guns never tire, while you have them tied up in combat, you still have teeming masses and venom thropes to help you out. And you have feel no pain from the cycle phase. That's the idea. I'm not going to tell you that Unending Swarm hasn't ended. But I will say that if we take everything that this one wanted to do, where it told us on paper you need to take Endless Multitude units and then put it with warriors, I am once again saying, why don't we just ask to see if that can be applied anywhere else for better results? And then once we get to that idea, I ask you once again, like I've highlighted before, do you need it to be warriors? So yes, if you want to save 45 points, that's the difference. If you want to save 45 points and make all of the Brood Lords Winged Tyranid Primes and make all the Gene Stealers Tyranid Warriors, you will be going from, let's see, 30 Gene Stealers down to 18 Tyranid Warriors? Nah, I don't know about that one. Don't know about that one, Chief. Also, the Warriors don't have an invuln. They have a 5 up here, but beyond that, they have a 4 up. Broodlord Gene Stealers at least has a 5 up. And then the Broodlord has a 4 up themselves. So, that's number 2. So, first, again, just to highlight some things, ask yourself when you're playing this detachment. That's why my advice not to, again, shit on this detachment so bad, because there is a different way to do it. But my main thing is, hey, be careful. If you play melee warriors, you might be able to do funnier things to the same ability somewhere else. So yeah, you don't have +1 to hit or a Neurotyrant attached or advancing charge, but you got damn close. Who gives a fuck? Because I'm hitting on 2s with a different way, and who gives a fuck? Okay. So that's that. So first, if I'm taking both Endless Multitude and a melee unit of warriors, does it need to be Bioform Onslaught? Can I put that in where any of the other keywords are, such as Unending Swarm? And then does it need to be warriors? Can I spare 45 points and make it Broodlord Gene Stealers, which can get through infantry pretty much all the same AP, devastating wounds, so who gives a fuck about the strength? Yeah, the wound rerolls is only on objectives. Keep that in mind. Do not forget that part. But I have an invuln. I have stealth options with venom throws. I have in combat stealth option with -1 to hit. Don't even need a Maliceptor for that one, right? So that's kind of what I mean. And again, I wasn't necessarily aiming to be petty. In my pettiness, it was just going to be talking about doing that. And then I stopped and thought for a second, hold on. I can do this better by making them Broodlord Gene Stealers for 45 points. Where am I getting 45? It is 65 for a Warrior, a Wing Prime. It is 80 at current for a Broodlord. So because they didn't change anything about Warriors in the balanced data slate, I still don't understand why they didn't do that. Like, they could have printed so much money right now. Bang. Give me a reason to take a battle line amount of Warriors. That's my biggest thing with this. If you are not taking a battle line amount of warriors, i.e., 4 squads of 1 stat sheet, you can be looking to play other things. But again, let me reel it in. Unending Swarm, I don't mean to keep popping up and being like, no, wait a second, you can still play it. But it looks like I am that person. Now, at the same time, will you see me playing this IRL and probably shit on TTS? Probably not. I don't really like TTS. I don't know. That's a separate conversation. There's nothing wrong with TTS. It's completely a me issue. Um, and IRL, I don't think I have the patience to move that many models around. However, while we're sitting there with 3 Stealer bombs and 2 Warrior bricks in Vanguard Onslaught, and wondering what happened, can we possibly put enhancements that actually matter on the Broodlord Gene Stealers and maybe replace the Warrior's job with other cheaper things? Sometimes. Now, also, there is the caveat of, well, you usually use Warriors as a counter punch. These, as Broodlord Gene Stealers with Scout, usually would be the first punch. Scout doesn't have to make you move forward. They also aren't the ones with the surge move. So you can scout backwards and then let the Hormigons go first, and then you follow up after they've taken off enough wounds, and then you come in and clean up with dev wounds. You don't have to go first. So pretty much the same argument can be made the other way. And that is not just the one comment that pointed that out. That's been 2 comments, and honestly, it was going to be in reference to somebody else's video that has a tip on how to do that. But then again, that's where I came to but I could do this with Broodlord Gene Stealers for just 45 points more and get more out of it. So then I didn't want to seem shady and be like, yeah, this, that, whatever. So like, since I wasn't doing it with Warriors anymore, I didn't want to. I guess I just inadvertently did that, and I guess I got to keep it in to explain. Furthermore, anyway, the point is that you don't have to go forward with Scouts. Gene Stealers, Broodlord can be the secondary punch. Maybe it's the one that did naturalize camouflage. You also can save 30 points. You don't have to take this. Like, I just said that you could. You don't have to take this because you have Venom Tropes. You could take those 30 points somewhere else. Yeah, so honestly, you don't have to take this one either. It's just nice. Save yourself 50 points, but yeah, that's the idea. How about we just try that one since we were already told to do that here? How about we do it here? Clean up everything with a fuck ton of models. So for 100 Hormigons. Oh, also there's the price thing. 1 box of Gene Stealers is the cost of 3 fucking Warriors. So instead of spending $90, well, $90 plus dollars for 1 full squad of Warriors, you could spend 45 for 1 full brick of Stealers. So there's that. There's the IRL comparison too. But Monster, you're asking for a lot of Hormigons. That's true. You also find Hormigons for cheap too, though. So like if you don't find them in their box for I think 40 right now, I can't remember. That's another one. Is just like, yeah, you do 40 boxes times 5. That is a bit pricey, but also you probably have Hormigons from whatever the fuck. Like 17 million things will give you Hormigons. And if you are playing Tyranids, I highly doubt you actually have to go buy many more Hormigons. For this idea, you might need more Hormigons, but it's not often that somebody watches a Tyranids video and has no Hormigons. Like, you probably have some to spare, and then go from there. But if you do, hey, not knocking your collection. Maybe everybody had to start somewhere. So, yeah. That's the video. We'll see if people believe in this one. Probably won't, but at least I did my best to say, hey, there's some more play. So yeah, if you like the video, like it. Got a comment for me, comment, and until next time, peace out, my monstrosities.